Welcome to the show, Hazel.
Hey, it's nice to be here.
Um, so let's start with my favorite question. What is your clean date?
My clean date is September 20th of 2024.
Alrighty, congratulations on a year. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank
As
you.
we're recording now, you got a year and a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Um, so my second favorite question is, what was going on September 19th of 2024?
Um, well, I think I shared this the last time. I had gone from thinking that I could handle alcohol to using a needle again very quickly in my relapse, because I had clean time before that. Um, and my best friend had basically said, like, I love you, but I can't watch you do this to yourself. Um, and I knew I needed to get to a meeting. And she actually went with me to my first meeting back. Um,
To make sure
so,
you started over?
well, no, just to support me and to
That's
be
cool.
there for me. I hadn't been to in-person meetings here in a while. And so I didn't know anybody and I was nervous.
Yeah.
And um, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough coming back. I've had to come back 3 times now, after relapses and just announce myself as back from a relapse,
Yeah.
and, start over. And it's different. I found because I've done it once on Zoom and I've done it twice in person. And don't worry, you don't have to vape on screen. That's okay. You don't have to turn away. Plenty of people smoke cigarettes and vape, whatever helps you stay calm. Um, but I remember doing it twice in person and once on Zoom, and it's difficult to raise your hand in that meeting in person in front of the people and see their faces to be like, yeah, I'm JD and I'm back from every relapse. I'm starting over today, but I also feel the support differently at the same time when it's in person. You can see their face. On Zoom, you can only see so many faces sometimes, and people are on mute, so you can't hear their reactions. So that's good that you did it in person. Are you a Zoom person too, or just in person kind of meeting?
So I originally my a lot of my recovery um, after COVID was on Zoom. And so for me, I hadn't, except for a few meetings when I moved here to Omaha, like I didn't know anybody in person, but I knew in my gut that I had isolated myself on Zoom, and that there was a community here in recovery that I could go to. Like I know that NA is all over. And so I knew that I needed to make an in-person meeting. And honestly, originally, I just planned on going back to my Zoom meetings, um, and maybe making an in-person meeting every once in a while. And that has not been the case.
Yeah,
Quite the opposite, actually.
yeah. It depends on where you live. It's good that where you live now has a decent or I don't want to say NA recovery community, um,
Yeah.
because I live in the middle of nowhere and we only have AA as an option. And
Yeah.
there's one NA meeting a week on Monday nights that just started about a month ago, which I'm going to go. I didn't know about it until this couple days ago, um, but I couldn't make it yesterday for the first Monday meeting that I could make it to. So I'm going to go next Monday. Um, so I'm excited for that because I got originally clean on in-person meetings, in 2018 before Zoom existed, and then in 2020, I didn't go. I went to AA. So, and that was in person. And then it wasn't long before they kind of pushed me out because I was talking about drugs too much in AA, and they didn't like that. you
Yeah.
know, One of the old timers pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, you have to talk about your situation, how it pertains to alcohol only." I'm like, well, I can't talk about alcohol as in costing me $1 a month for my script, so I can't talk about it being a financial reason for me to stop. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. So I switched to Zoom, and that's worked out for me so far. I go 7 nights a week, and they're based out of Santa Cruz, California, and I really like my home group. So where are you from originally, Hazel?
I grew up in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up in Brevard County, uh, in
Where's
a
that
pretty big.
near city wise? Is that like on Tampa side or Miami side or Orlando middle?
Nope. Actually, the far east. I grew up about 30 minutes south of Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Okay.
It's where, well, Kennedy Space Center is right above Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. It's where all the cruise ships kind of come out of.
Okay. Yeah. I'm somewhat familiar. Now, um, what was it like growing up? Do you have any siblings? Or are you an only child?
So
Parents
I
still
was,
together? Or what happened? Like, what was the dynamic like growing up?
yeah. So my dad left when I was 3. I don't really remember that all too well. And so my mom and I, from like my earliest memories, is we were living with my grandparents. Um, Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink real quick. Um, and growing up there with my grandparents, like my granddad worked for the government. He worked for the Department of Defense, so I didn't see him very much. But my grandmother was like my rock, my world. Um, I My grandmother was like my person. Um, and I think that that was just like the best relationship that I can remember growing up until um, my mom just met a man when I was like 5 or 6, and we started, living with him. We had gotten a townhouse, when I was pretty young, and I didn't spend as much time with my grandmother then.
Okay. So in your first few years, 5 years, you lived with your grandparents and your mom, and then your mom met a guy, typical story, mom meets a guy, and so you're an only child then, like growing up.
Yeah, yeah, I was an only child.
What was that like? How did you feel as an only child growing up? Because I'm the oldest of three, so I can't imagine. I
Yeah,
got to imagine it's different.
yeah. I kind of was an only child until I was like 13. Um, and the only grandchild as well
Hmm.
until until I was 13. I should say that because my mom put my sister and my brother up for adoption before I was born. My mom had an addiction problem, and so when she had them, she was not in a place. Um, she did have a relapse once she met the man that we moved in with, but so I didn't have that. And so like my grandparents, doted on me and I spent a lot of time with them. Um, and then, when my mom met this man, she started using drugs again. Um, the man, my stepdad was, because my mom got married to him probably like a year after, we had moved in with him. And he was involved in what I now know is like it was a cult. Um, and For about 8, 9 years, uh, went through a lot of abuse in that cult. So
You did, or she did, or both of you
I
did?
I did. My mom got involved with this cult as well, and was as much of a part of it as my stepdad was. Most, if not all, of the children that were a part of this were abused. I wasn't the only one.
Okay. So your mom kind of did he do drugs too, or did he kind of get her drugged up so that he could do what he wanted?
No. She was very much a willing participant in all of it. Um, she made the choice to use again. I would say like he was more aggressive when he used, and just was like this angry, volatile person. I don't know if it was a certain substance that caused him to be this way, because he wasn't like that all the time when he was high. But yeah.
Can I ask what kind of abuse?
Yeah, so I now have like terminology for it, as I've kind of like been healing from it and
Mhm.
working through a lot of the trauma that I experienced during that time. But it's considered satanic ritual abuse. So I went through sexual, physical, emotional, mental um, abuse uh, for many years.
So the whole gamut, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you said you weren't the only one.
No,
And the abuse came at his hands, or other people in the cult, or both?
both. And my mom as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. And how long did
Because
that? Good.
a lot, just to kind of, I guess, explain that,
Yeah, sure, of course.
the abuse continued at home. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't just when we were there. And so some of the abuse was the other people that were involved in this cult. But I would go home and the same kind of abuse would happen at home.
Okay, so a lot of it, or some of it, with the other members would happen like on location of where the cult was located,
Yes.
and it was like set up to do that, to like abuse teenagers. And what was the youngest they would abuse that you
Well,
know
I
of?
was I was 7 or 8
Oh shit.
when it started
Okay.
for me. And I want to say, uh, I remember very small children. I can't like tell you it was this age or not.
Yeah.
I can just tell you they were very young.
Does cult still exist?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Um, I believe that I read somewhere about them shutting it down. It was at this, so it originally was where my gymnastics studio was, and it was in the basement. And they closed the gymnastics studio down, and they continued there. And I think I was like 13 or 14 when it got, like, a lot of the members had, gotten arrested, and they raided the facility itself. And to my knowledge, it's not around.
It's good. Well, I'm curious. What was the I don't want to say point of the cult, but like what was their objective? If you do you know what like they were like all about? Like was it just about abusing kids, or did they have other like you know?
No, I believe that they were attempting to gain power
Okay.
um, from pretty demonic things, through um, it. And this is like, I trigger warning for anybody that's listening to
Yeah.
this.
My whole show is a trigger warning, don't worry.
Yeah. Through like bloodletting, and through children having intercourse with other children. They were gaining, I think they thought they were gaining some power, some prestige, some monetary gain, from doing these things.
Okay, so it was even like they would make the children abuse other children, basically, and but not, you
They
didn't know
did.
it wasn't really abusing other children; it was coerced into at that
Well,
age.
and I think a lot of us, especially like as I got older in this cult, I saw what would happen if, and I experienced what would happen if I didn't do what they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And the consequences were way worse than what it was if I just went along with what they were wanting me to do.
Kind of like it
Because
went along to get along.
yes.
And okay. And are you still like friends with anybody from this cult? Like you mean children wise or like people your age, I mean? Like are you
Um,
in contact with any of them?
no. I saw someone a few years back that I recognized. And this was on like TikTok.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so and so. And I attempted reaching out. And she just wasn't at a place in her life where she wanted to think about any of it. And I,
Revisit.
yeah. So I totally understood. And like me reaching out wasn't about, any of that. Uh, but I also understand why it would be so easy to just not even think about it.
Was there boys in this group too?
Yeah, there were boys and girls.
It's fucked. It's the only thing I can think of word wise. Now when did they make you use or drink while you were like a kid too, or did you start that after you got out of the cult with trying to deal with like what you had been through?
Yeah, I think I talked about this last time because I didn't
Yeah, a
talk
lot of
about
it's
it.
a revisit. I talked to so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I didn't talk about the abuse last time, but I did talk about like my first drug was self-harm. It was
Mm,
cutting, and it was that release of but no, I didn't use drugs or alcohol during that time. Um, like when I would have dinner with my grandparents, I'd have like half a glass of wine because it was normal. I had Italian grandparents, like it was
yeah,
normal.
yeah.
But I never did anything to like numb how I was feeling until I was 12 or 13.
So that's when you started cutting, was around, adolescent teenage years.
Yeah, I was around 9 or 10 when I started self-harming.
9 or 10. Wow.
Yeah.
That was so how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay. Now, because I have a good friend that got into it when she was 11, and I was curious, this is like before like Google. So, how did you learn about self harm or cutting at a young age without like that kind of social media and all that kind of stuff?
I don't I don't really think there was anything. I don't remember there being like this. I was I
I know
don't
she read
remember.
it in a She read it in like a magazine, like, and that's what
Yeah,
she knew about it.
I think that there was some movie or something that I had watched. But it wasn't like it was descriptive in the sense that it talked about it much, but it was oh my gosh, she's it's a really good movie if you haven't seen it, but it's about a girl. I think her name's Winona Ryder,
Hmm.
and she has BPD.
Okay.
Girl Interrupted.
Girl Interrupted is a very good movie. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I'd watched that. My grandmother was watching it, and I think that I just had the idea of, well, maybe I could hurt myself and I would feel
Yeah.
better because one of the girls in the movie did that. And so I it wasn't like this idea that was presented that, anybody was cutting or anything like that.
Mm. It was
But
a way to be in control of a situation since you had no control of anything growing up or in the cult or anything.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did anybody know you were cutting? Because, like, I would imagine it was on your arms or your thighs is where you start usually, right?
Yeah, and I when I started self-harming, uh, nobody knew for a couple of years because I wasn't doing it. Um I wasn't doing it deep at the time. And so nobody really knew
Mm.
until I was in the 7th grade. That's when my family found out. Yeah.
Did they send you away anywhere to like get like treatment?
Not at first. I I think I was 13 when I went to the psych ward for the first time. Um, and I was in and out of the psych ward from pretty much that age on until I was 17, um, for self-harming, for eventually like my addiction,
Yeah.
suicide attempts, things like that.
Okay. And you started drinking at 13, like not just wine with your grandparents, but like drinking, or did you go straight to using, or was it like smoking weed or cigarettes?
So, I mean, I did a little bit of everything. I started hanging out with kids that really didn't, you know, I to back up a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
I I was 12 years old, um, and I found out I was pregnant. I
From the cult?
was, I would, yeah, yes, and found out. I don't know how long it was when I found out that it was my stepdad, and that CPS got involved. I was at the time going to like a college prep school basically because I had such good grades. It was what I really like threw myself into was school. It was my escape.
Mm.
And so I'd gotten into this really, it's like a college prep school. And so find out I'm pregnant. This is my 7th grade year. It's around the time that my mom and my grandparents find out about my cutting. Um, oh, I guess I was 11. I was 11. Yeah. Because I had her 10 days after my 12th birthday. And so they found out about my cutting after I gave birth to her. So I
Did you
I
choose
ended
to
up
have her,
having
or did they make you have her?
so
Because 11's a young age to make that kind of decision.
my mom had a conversation with me, and she said we can go and we can get this taken care of. I also, this was the time that she told me about my brother and my sister. At this, I had no idea that I had a brother and sister before that. Um, and she said I've had abortions, I've put kids up for adoption, or I can I can take care of her, and I'll take custody. And at the time, I didn't know what to do. I made the decision that I was going to keep her, and that it would be better if my mom raised her. And so they had arrested my stepdad by this point, and
Good.
had done, interviews with me about him. I didn't talk about the cult because it was kind of drilled into me that if I talked about that I would be taken away, that I would never see my grandparents again. And so I was only allowed to talk about what he did in the house, um, and not anyone else, or I would be taken away from my grandparents. I did not want that. I didn't know at the time that they probably would have ended up being the ones that had me.
Yeah.
But at that age, I just was so afraid that I was going to lose them that I said what they wanted me to say. And so he had been arrested. I made the decision I'm going to sign over. We did all the legal stuff before she was born. Um, and I gave birth to her 10 days after my 12th birthday. Um, and it was shortly after giving birth, probably like 6 months later. She was about 6 months when, my everyone kind of finds out that I've been cutting. A school resource officer, one of the girls that I was in school with found out. She went to the school resource officer. It became a whole thing. And so this was the same school that I was doing so well in, until kind of the cutting became more that I got moved to like a regular public school. And there's when I started hanging out with like people that didn't fit in and like were misfits, because that's where I felt comfortable. Those were the people that I felt comfortable around, because I didn't feel like at this point in my life like anybody could understand me. Um, and so I started smoking cigarettes. Yeah, I started drinking. I really didn't like how alcohol made me feel. And then I knew my mom, like people had talked about like pills. And so I'd started, taking some pills here and there. Um, I knew my mom had like Percocets. And so I would steal her Percocets and bring them to school and trade them for stuff. Um, and it just, I mean, it progressed from there. I was mainly pills. It was mainly, just trying to numb the pain that I couldn't really talk about.
Yeah, because
Uh,
in the mid 2000s, pills were everywhere. They were so prevalent. That's I got into pills in 2008, and you're talking about like 2006 ish. So, I mean, I
yeah,
know that pills were everywhere back then because the doctors were just handing them out like candy, you know.
yeah, yeah, especially in Florida. I think that I know now that, it was because you could just literally walk in and pay somebody a
Oh,
hundred
yeah, in
dollars.
Florida, yeah, there's pill mills everywhere. I just
Yeah,
realized
and
that you said Florida pill mills.
yeah, yeah, and so you could walk in and pay 50, 60, $80 and get a script of Oxy for nothing. Like you didn't have an illness.
Yeah.
You just
How old were you when you were able to go there, or your mom going there?
so no, my mom was actually prescribed her medication.
Hmm.
I think I was 15 or 16 when I started going.
And they didn't care
Um,
about the age.
no, no, and they didn't ask. If you had money, they didn't care.
Wow. Now, so oh my God, wait. I want to backtrack a second. You said you were an only child until about 13.
Yeah, so
Does that mean the other child was your daughter technically?
no,
Okay.
so I mean, yes and
Okay.
no. So my mom raised my daughter as her own, and so for the first 13 years of my life, or her, not my life, her life, um, she was under the impression that she was my sister, because her dad's in jail. And how do you explain that to a child?
Yeah.
Uh, but so she was raised as my sister, pretty much, like I said, till she was 13. And when I was 13, my uncle, who lived with my grandparents, uh, found out he had gotten another chick pregnant, and she was 3 years old, and the mom had like a psychotic episode. And so D- DCF had taken her. And so my dad was trying to get custody, and my grandparents ended up getting custody of her. And so at 13, I have a sister now. That's my daughter. And I have a 3-year-old cousin who's living with my grandparents now and her dad.
Okay.
Um,
Now I'm caught up.
yeah, yeah. So
Now, um, that must have been a lot. And I just realized because at first I was worried about any kind of issues with it being your dad and you, but your stepdad, so there would be no kind of chromosomal like genetic issues with your daughter. Um, Now, do you have a relationship with your daughter to this day? As like, do you call her your daughter, or does she call you? Like, how does that work? If you don't mind me asking, I'm just curious.
so
You don't have to answer. It's a personal question. I know.
no, no. It's so I shared about my rescue with being trafficked in my previous episode with you. And when I got moved to Omaha, uh, I was at a shelter here, an amazing shelter for our area. And I had gotten the call that my daughter was being rushed to the hospital. My daughter overdosed on a combination of painkillers and Xanax, and she didn't. Uh, sorry,
It's okay. Take your time.
she didn't make it. Uh, so I'd love to say that I get to call my daughter, but I don't. Um,
How
it
old
was
was
the
she?
first time she had used pills. Um, she was 18.
18. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's a lot, you know. So this was 2 years ago,
it was 2022.
3 years ago.
She
Okay.
would have been she would have been 18. Um, she was 17, so she would have been 18 in 3 months.
Okay.
She would have been turning 18.
Were you in sobriety when that happened?
I was. I was.
How did you relapse because of it? I know we're jumping around, you know.
No,
I'm just
no,
curious.
no, no. I didn't relapse. I had an incredible woman. Like I had just moved here. I knew no one, had no one. I was doing Zoom meetings. But I had somebody who worked at the shelter that I'd got incredibly close with. Um, when I got the call about my daughter, she was there when I got the call that she didn't make it. And she came in on her day off. She actually lost her job the next day, and we've been best friends ever since. Uh, but she helped me. Um, she was there for me. Is still there for me because it's it's still really hard. You know,
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that.
it's a pain that like no parent should ever have to carry. Um, I had so many chances, I think, in my life where I had attempted suicide and shouldn't be here. And it I just it's a pain that yeah, no one should have to ever experience. I did stay clean. Um, mainly because I had somebody who believed in me. I also didn't think that. Uh, I also knew, actually, I knew that using wasn't going to make this any better. And then
Yeah,
I was going to have to eventually feel this pain again if I used. Um, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Is again I'm jumping. How much time did your stepdad get, or is he still there?
So my stepdad served, I think it was a total of 11 years.
That's
He
it.
actually, yeah, he actually was released on I think it was 11 years he served. I think he served 11 of a certain amount of his sentence, and that he was let out on parole. And they paroled him. Oh, I was an adult. Um, how many years ago this was?
Did
But
your mom didn't take him back, I hope, right?
no, no.
Okay. Okay.
He was paroled on early release for good behavior. Um, and actually,
The joke.
his story it it is crazy because he ended up going to somewhere in Oklahoma. Like he didn't know anybody in Oklahoma, but he ended up getting killed in some drug deal gone bad. And his sister ended up like reaching out to me. I think it was via Facebook at the time. She ended up reaching out to me to tell me like he had died. And I was like, I didn't know what to say to her because like it's her brother.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, fucking serves him right. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, he ended up like going somewhere in Oklahoma and drug deal gone bad. And uh, it was shortly after he was put out on parole. So he was supposed to be out of the state of Florida. But yeah.
You get what you get. You know, that's, I believe, called karma.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't like to celebrate the dead, but, at the same time, eh.
Yeah.
I just had somebody on my trauma show, and we talked about her abuser eventually dying and how she wanted to like high five people,
Yeah.
because you get what you get. Now let's rewind back again. Like I said, I could jump around.
Yeah.
Now you're in your teens, you're going to pill mills, and you're in and out of rehabs. You keep getting sent to psych
Yeah.
wards and rehabs, but nothing's really working. When does it like really? I feel like it takes, because, like I said, we talked about a year ago, and a lot's happened since then, at least for me. So like I've done like 50 interviews since then.
Yeah.
Catch me. What happens next that where it like really jumps off again?
So, I was probably I was 18. I moved in with family my senior year in high school. I really nothing like magical happened. I graduated high school. I stopped cutting. I went to college. Went to college.
All while using still, or one of the rehabs actually work?
No, I think that moving in with this family my senior year was what helped me.
Okay.
They just cared about me. And it was like my mom wasn't my mom anymore, you know, even after he was gone. And my mom was unmedicated bipolar, which is what I know now. And so she would just have these rage episodes. And so when I was 18, I moved out, and like I didn't think when I moved in with this family that I would do anything different, but I did. I stopped cutting, I stopped using, I stopped everything. Um, and when I went off to college, I thought, I went to a Christian college, and I thought that like, I thought that like my whole life was starting, like completely over, A, and B, that like I never had to do anything that I had done previously in this new life. That lasted for all of like 90 days of me being there. Before, I was out partying, I was doing drugs, I was, taking pills. I got introduced to, smoking my DOC, and very quickly, like I think a matter of maybe a couple of days, I learned how to use a needle. Um, and so my disease escalated very quickly. Um,
But you mean smoking dope, or like?
yeah, I
Okay.
was smoking hair. Yeah, I was smoking heroin. And then I ended up shooting it up because one of the girls was like, listen, you've
If
got to
you like
try
this, if you like
this.
this, you're gonna like
You're
this.
going to really like this. Like, it's going to be better than anything you've ever had. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, and, but it was still like, I was still going to school. I was still managing. I was still doing everything. You know, it wasn't like I was at a low, like I was at a very high point in my life. Um, and then I was doing an internship. Like I had like 6 months left in my degree. So I was doing my internship. Um, and I remember that only because that's where I got the call. My granddad had called me to tell me that my grandmother had passed. Um, and I literally fell to the floor, just devastated. I'm in Missouri in college. You know, my family still lives in Florida, and got in a vehicle, and it's a 24-hour trip there from where I was in Missouri. And even in 6 hour, uh, I don't know if you've ever driven through Georgia ever during rush hour
I
morning
have.
traffic,
Yep.
but it's about 6 hours of bumper to bumper. You're not going anywhere. And it's a 24-hour trip there to where I lived in Florida. And I made it there in 19 hours, even sitting in traffic for 6 hours. That's how quickly I drove.
Yeah.
Um, and it really didn't, like, I went there. My grandparents they don't believe in like funerals or people throwing like any kind of anything for the dead.
And this is
And
your grandma
so,
that raised you, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Was it
so,
this old age?
so my grandmother had congenital heart failure. And so, it was honestly like, I can't smoke weed, but my grandmother smoked weed till the day she died. And that was what kept her alive for so long, I believe.
Yeah.
And helped her deal with a lot of the pain she dealt with because of her some of her congenital heart failure and the other medical issues she dealt with.
Yeah, I don't
Because
smoke weed, but I'm a supporter of people that do smoke. I don't smoke. I quit
yeah,
16, 17 months ago, but I still support people that do.
it was very much a medical reason she smoked. My uncle was the same way. He had a brain injury that caused him to have seizures, and weed made him not have seizures. And so that's their story. I can't. I know I can't. But my grandmother lived a whole lot longer than she should have. And she went she went the way she wanted to go. You know,
Yeah.
she went in her sleep. And so
No,
um
you can't because of like some kind of asthma or something, or because like the 12 steps.
it's not the 12 steps. It's the fact that if I put anything in my body, anything that changes how I feel, I'm not talking caffeine or nicotine. I'm
Yeah.
talking a substance. It changes me.
Yep.
It's like the alcohol. I didn't like how it made me feel. I didn't like the effects of it, but it convinced me that I could use drugs.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it may not happen the first drink. It may not happen the second drink. It may not happen when I hit weed one time because I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't. I get stupid. I fall on my face. I don't get the munchies and like get giddy. I am on my face. And I don't like that feeling. But it changes how I think about it. And I eventually will make the decision to use
Yeah.
because that's been my story. You know, I could use a substance and it would be fine until it wasn't.
Yeah. Now, were you using the entire way to the 19-hour drive?
No, I actually, I wasn't using to the point where I was detoxing if I wasn't using. And so like I went down there with nothing. Like I might I had a few drinks when I was down there, you know, with my granddad. And like when I went down there, I ended up going for I think I ended up staying 2 weeks. I was only supposed to go down there for a week. because we had such bad snow driving back up that I didn't want to make that drive with as bad as the snow had hit the area I lived in. And
Yeah.
so but my granddad went and got her ashes, which were in my grandparents' house throughout most of my adult life. But we didn't have a funeral. We didn't have any of that. Like I said, they didn't believe in that. And so I was there for the 2 weeks and I had to go back to Missouri. And I really didn't, I had feelings. I cried. I experienced some feelings, but I was really, while I was in Florida, kind of numb. I was married at this point.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to get into that too much, only because like when I went to the Christian college, I thought that I had to change who I was to
Okay.
fit
I think I
in.
remember this from the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to fit in, and I got married so that nobody looked at me differently, because I knew I liked women. I knew I thought I was gay, but I knew if I said that I would be shunned from this
100%.
community.
Yeah.
Not the drugs, not the alcohol, but because I'm gay. And so I got married. And so at this point, like, I'm married to this man. He went with me down to Florida. And I think a lot of it was, I went to a lot of the places that I had been to a few years prior, when I was a teenager, but like it was more of like introducing him to Florida. He'd never left Missouri. And so it was like a lot of firsts for him. And like we have the Indian River Lagoon, which is where the Indian River and the ocean meet, and it's brackish water. And so you've got sea urchins that you can just pick up, and all kinds of like wild sea life that you can just go down there and like, hold. And, it, and so a lot of my time was spent, giving him first and um, not really feeling anything. And so when I went back to Missouri, I felt it. My world kind of just like, I think I got back there and it just exploded for me. I spent January to March actively trying to kill myself
Like
with drugs.
drugs?
With drugs, yeah.
We were saying at the same time.
Yeah,
Now,
with drugs.
did
It
your
was
husband know you were using?
he did at this
Okay.
point.
Okay.
He didn't originally, but he knew at this point because I was overdosing so often.
Mm-hmm.
I started using with the intent of dying, with the intent of not waking up. And this is before fentanyl.
Yeah.
So I was trying combinations of drugs to attempt to not wake up. He ended up having to take so much time off of work during this period that he was done. The place that I was interning, I ended up graduating, and they were like, "We need to get you help." And so I was only there for like 2 days at this treatment center because it's like a year-long Christian program. And I have mental health issues. And they were just like, "We're going to work you. And that's all you're going to do. You can't talk to anybody that's here. You have to wear clothes." I ended up leaving. And when I was like 14 or 15, I had gotten introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. And so I remember calling my husband from there because I said, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm not staying here." They wouldn't let you call anyone. They wouldn't let you do, like, I had a grand mal seizure and they prayed over me. Like, I was detoxing and they were praying over me. I asked for Tylenol and they said my headache would go away if I prayed harder. And so I was only there for 2 days, like I said. And I remember like calling my husband there and saying, "Come pick me up." And he's like, "Well, I can't continue to miss work and all of this." And I said, "I'm going to go to Narcotics Anonymous," because the program had, I'd been introduced to at 14, 15 that I wasn't ready for. And he's like, "Okay." So he came and he got me. And I started making meetings. I got clean, you know. I don't know if it was my first day at it when I made my first meeting that I picked this date, or if it was a few days before I went to this treatment center that I picked the date. But my clean date at that time was March 19th of 2013. And that was my first clean date.
You were 20 or 21?
Yes, I was 20. It was 20. Maybe I was 21. I don't know the math with that. Math is not my strong suit.
I'm pretty good at it
Uh,
when it comes to that stuff.
but so yeah, I got clean. I started making meetings. I got surrounded by old timers who had like I think the like least amount of clean time with people I hung with were like 13 years. And
Shit.
so and then I left my husband after I got clean. I realized that like I graduated from college. I had no reason to be with him. I was unhappy too. Um, and I was in denial
About
about
your
who I
situation.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like the people that were in meetings were like, be yourself. Like it doesn't matter. Like, and he was getting super like jealous of me going to meetings and like going to functions and events and stuff like that. And so I left him, ended up getting divorced or starting the divorce process, and ended up moving back to Florida to I had nothing really in Missouri to and I and Narcotics Anonymous had started to give me a life. And so I knew that there were meetings there. And I moved back there and made a meeting the first day, and built a huge network while I was there. Um, Stayed clean, got incredible. I had a couple really incredible jobs, working in the mental health field, working within the criminal justice system to help with rehabilitation efforts, and recidivism within our county jail, and just doing a lot for the community there. Um, and I know I shared this the last episode, so I'm going to briefly like speed through this next part, but um, I ended up getting a job, an incredible job, pre-COVID, working from home as a shift supervisor for Crisis Text Line. And I wanted to travel. Like that was my biggest thing. And I thought, well, I can start speaking at some of these conventions that, you know, I'd been asked to speak at. And I got asked to speak at this one in Dallas in Texas. And like I talked about last time, that's when my trafficking story occurred, from
Now,
age
what can you
24.
just refresh me, because I do want to hear about it again if you don't mind. You went to Dallas for a speaking engagement.
Yep. I'd come in a day early before I needed to be there, and I was staying at a hotel that night instead of going up to that college. And I went to Target because you couldn't fly with anything, and you still can't, but
Yeah.
liquids, you can't fly with liquids. So I wanted to get, you know, some shampoo, conditioner, stuff like that. And I went into a Target, where I was approached by two ladies who invited me to this Bible study. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's such a wonderful, like, okay, you know, maybe this is something I need to go to. I didn't really think anything of it. Um, and so they'd given me a card, and said, oh, just come to this address. And so later that night, I went to this Bible study, this college age Bible study, where I should have immediately known, like, people weren't wearing very conservative clothing. They were not provocatively dressed, but definitely not Bible study dressed. And so I'd gone up to like where they had said, "Oh, go get a drink." And so I went up and I got a drink, and within minutes, like everything starts to kind of like change.
Like a regular drink, like punch.
Uh, there was no taste of anything like alcohol or anything in it. But like immediately, like everything started feeling weird, and I didn't feel right. And I remember thinking, I need to get out of here. And I don't really have a lot of memory of that time of like what occurred. I know I was moved. I know I was in a vehicle. I know I was in the back of another vehicle shortly after being moved to another place, like another going into another building. Um, and I was moved from there to Abilene years later, piecing together like what occurred. Um,
Because you were just like under a fog for so
yeah,
long.
yeah, and I was being drugged, and I
For years, right?
yes, yeah. It I was 24 when I was trafficked from Dallas to Abilene. Um, and I was 30 when I was rescued. Um, so for 6 years, I was drugged, and um, a lot of what happened is still, I'm still working through. I'm still,
Do you do like
I'll,
EMDR or whatever? Or EDMR or EMDR?
so I haven't been able to do EMDR only because a lot of the trauma that occurred, my brain kind of protected me from.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the trauma therapy that I do is more of um I have flashbacks, I have these memories, and then talking about them kind of helps me to like, I guess, unpack some of it. And as it happens, as I have these memories, as I discuss, the details of things, I remember it more clearly. It's still a fog. It's still like a bad dream. But I've been able to deal with a lot of it and remember a lot of it clearer through therapy and through working through it with people who uh, know what I'm going through. Um, but yeah, so um, April of 2022. Well, I guess it was a few weeks before that. I was I guess it was 3 months before that. I was gonna, I was reaching out to an agency to try and get out because one of the girls that I was close to in that lifestyle had told me, she's like, if there's anybody that can get out of this, it's you. Um, if there is a God, like he's gonna save you. Now I look back and I'm like, but why me? They deserve it as much as I do. But I'd reached out to an agency and they basically told me, like, you have to be out of trafficking for 6 months and you have to be in therapy. Like, these people had barely trusted me to have a phone. And you guys are telling me that I have to be out. Like, I wouldn't be contacting you if I could just get out.
Yeah.
And so they'd give me the list of these resources that I could reach out to. And um, one of them was in Omaha, Nebraska. And they were like, oh, can you get to the airport there? And I said, no. And they said, well, give us some time. If you can leave, if you can get out of there and just go to a gas station, just go leave, just leave. Um, And so I ended up going up to a gas station up the street. And this woman who, I didn't even know we had any anti-trafficking agencies where I lived. This agency in Omaha, Nebraska, I contacted the agency there in Abilene, and she picked me up from there. Um, I remember her saying, like, we're gonna get you on a plane, but I want to take you to breakfast. Is that okay? And she's like, we're gonna stop by my office. I had a I had a backpack and a purse on me. I had nothing. And so I remember like looking at the phone and she's like, can you turn off your location on your phone like completely? Um, and like I was looking at the weather in Omaha. It was like 100 degrees where we were. And Omaha, Nebraska was like 40 degrees. And this woman
Hmm.
goes, is there anything you need? I've got a closet full of clothes, women's clothes at my office. Like, is there anything you need? And I was like, a jacket? Because I didn't have a jacket with me. Um, and I was so grateful for that jacket because I got here and it was 40 degrees. I didn't know what the fuck to do with myself. Um, but yeah, she helped get me on that plane, got me moved. I didn't stay with the agency.
No one tried
The
stopping you. No one tried stopping you or anything. They didn't catch on to what you were doing.
No, no. Uh, and nobody has like moving to Omaha. I had to change my name. I had to have a legal name change, like completely changed my whole name. Had to do a lot of. Uh, I'm not. I'm not like in witness protection or anything like that. I worked with Homeland Security. Um, they have worked to, apprehend a lot of the people that were involved. Of course, they go with the little guys first. And so after 3 years of kind of being here, the justice system does not work like Law and Order or any of those shows make it seem like. It's been a very slow process of all of it.
So Hazel's not your real name.
Legally, yes, but it
Wait,
was not the name I was born with.
that's what I mean. Yeah, and I don't. We're not going to get into that. It takes a lot then to be on camera to be like, "This is who I am." Here's my face. When it
Hmm.
wasn't long ago that you were rescued from there, so I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
That had to have been a hard decision the first time you did it. Where you were like putting yourself out there.
yeah. So I kind of knew. Well, I didn't know when I first moved here, like what do I do with my life? Like where do I go from here? What what am I doing? What? And a lot of it's been through working in therapy, um, making mistakes, having a relapse, getting married to a woman who was abusive to
Okay,
me.
so now I feel like we're skipping. Okay, you get to Omaha.
Hmm.
It's like April 2022, and you got clean right away. Like you decided to get clean, and
Yeah, so I had never really made the decision to use drugs willingly while I was
yeah.
in Texas. And so I cleaned up. I hadn't used for I had I had stopped. Um,
And this is
I had,
around the time that your daughter passed, and you met the woman that you're still friends with to this day in the agency that you
yeah,
eventually left.
yeah.
Okay.
So I I went to the agency. I went to the place where the anti-trafficking agency here. Again, I don't know why it is part of my story. This agency ended up getting like dismantled like a year ago because of kind of the corruption within their agency. But it was a Christian agency that you can't be on psych meds. You can't do, you
Oh
can't
shit.
leave. it was very controlling, and I felt just as controlled because I wasn't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to call anyone. I wasn't allowed to do anything that they didn't say I could do. And so I was there maybe a week before I moved to the shelter, and I needed that. I understand that some women coming out of that lifestyle need that protection, and that I can't make phone calls, I can't have a cell phone, things like that. But I needed freedom. I needed to make mistakes. I needed to make choices. I didn't know what that looked like in the beginning because I had been controlled for so long that it was hard for me to make choices. But I
Yeah.
needed the freedom to learn how to do that again. I needed the freedom to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Um, and really, a lot of people say that, like, I was rescued, and I don't believe that. Like, yes, absolutely, that's a word to describe what happened. But I, more than anything, I needed to be received. I needed to be accepted for where I was, and to be loved through that. And recovery gave me that. People that surrounded me here and across the world because of Zoom gave me that.
Was it a women's shelter?
No, so it was a co-ed shelter. It's a lot of the shelters here in our area are wet shelters, which mean you can use and drink as long as you don't have it on property. But the shelter that I was at was not. It was a um, it was a dry shelter. It was a men and women's shelter. I went from there to an Oxford, and then from that Oxford, I ended up moving in with my best friend, the one who came when I got the call that my daughter um, had passed. And from there, I met a woman, thought I was in love. Um, and I think through like all of that time, I was trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted, what I don't want, what I will accept, what I won't accept. When I left my wife, I filed a restraining order shortly after she left because she continued to try
Harass
and
you?
try and come back. Um, I had asked her to move out. She had moved out, and she would just come to my house. At this point, like, my best friend has moved in with me, and because I needed help with my bills, and this woman is still attempting to uh, put her hands on me. And so I got a restraining order, filed for divorce, got the restraining order, had filed charges against my wife because of the abuse. Um, and I think it was about that time that, uh, like, I had already started drinking, but not to numb the pain. I thought that I could just drink and be fine. Um, and so I'd had like half a glass of wine or one or two drinks. And when everything started happening with the restraining order and my wife trying to come back and still hurting me and me having to press charges, that one drink turned into a bottle, turned into a needle in my arm within a matter of a month, maybe. Um, I went from a couple shooters to a bottle to trying to find what I wanted.
Yeah.
Um, and that relapse was, I think, what I needed to figure out what I want in life. Because I, I don't want to die, but I don't want to feel how I'm feeling. I want to have relationships and be close to people, but my whole life is on Zoom and people live halfway across the country.
Yeah.
And I didn't have relationships here outside of my best friend. And so that relapse, I made my first meeting. I surrounded myself with people who are in recovery, who are working a program, um, who I have incredible relationships with today. I consider them family.
So
Um,
this is now we're up until September 20th.
yeah, yeah. And so, I think that relapse really helped me to reevaluate my life and what am I doing? And am I going to heal from this, or am I going to let it break me? Um, and I think I made the decision that, like, people have taken enough from me for far too long,
Yeah.
um, for me to be another statistic. And I just ran with that. I've ran with that the last year. Things have been hard. I've had to walk through a lot of things in the past year that have been an emotional roller coaster, having to face the trauma and and realize that I'm not going to let any person to ever control me again, ever. And to kind of take that power back and take control of my life in a way that will help other people. When I moved here, I decided to go back to school. I started a bachelor's program. I'll graduate in April with my bachelor's degree. I haven't fully, I'm not going to talk about where I'm going next with school. I will say I'm going to school shortly after I graduate with my bachelor's. I just haven't made the decision as to which direction I'm going yet.
Do you know which
But
major did you pick a major?
so my bachelor's degree is in psychology with a
Okay.
concentration in mental health, with a minor in criminal justice.
Okay. It's a lot.
So I currently work, I've been working since March, as a case manager for an agency that works with mental health and co-occurring disorders. We have we have 4 crisis beds that work with clients who don't meet the requirement of a psych hospital,
Mm,
but are in crisis.
okay.
And then we have 11 beds that are for individuals who, um, it's considered transitional living, although there's case managers on site 24 hours a day. Um, they're not as, it's not like our crisis where, you can't leave property. They can get jobs. They can go out into the community. They have a curfew, things like that. But um, I get to help people every single day. Um, I love what I do. I've been able to work on advocacy and policy for individuals who have been trafficked, as well as people who are experiencing homelessness or mental health issues, um, at state, local, and different agencies like weights and measures divisions across the country, hospitals, training our doctors and nurses on what trafficking is and what they can look out for. But I've also worked, like I said, at the state level to work on policy for helping individuals who are vulnerable, not just trafficking, but our homeless population here in Omaha.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been able to kind of do a little bit of everything um, this last year. And I'm still figuring out, like, where I want to land, feet wise, what do I want to be doing specifically to help people, to bring, help people, really, is what I want to be doing. And I'm doing it right now. I just, degree wise, haven't fully committed yet. So, but yeah.
How often do you do meetings on top of this?
Yeah. So,
Like, what's your recovery look like in the last year?
so, I have a home group. Um, that's every Saturday night. I really enjoy that meeting. Tuesdays, for the most part, I go to another meeting that I really like in person. Um,
Except tonight. Okay. Except tonight.
except tonight. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Um, yeah. I and then I get to take the clients that I work with on Sundays to a 5 to 6 o'clock meeting that I enjoy. And yeah, the rest of my recovery is really about, I have a sponsor who I talk to regularly. She's amazing. And I have two sponsees currently that
Okay.
I am working steps with them as well. And yeah, just the friends, family really that I have in Narcotics Anonymous is incredible. I think I said this earlier. I originally thought that I was going to continue in Zoom meetings. Um, I'd had
Yeah.
I had had some people really kind of do me dirty online. I had a sponsor who, this was prior to this relapse, who ended up stating that they were going to blab some of the things that I had divulged to them in my 4 step. And so my relapse really kind of like pushed me um, in a new direction for my recovery, in the sense that I I started making more in-person meetings. I started making more in-person connections. I still continued Zoom meetings, but recently I actually took a step back from those meetings as well.
Yeah.
And
If you
have,
want a late night meeting, feel free to come on by. It
yeah,
is 7 o'clock. No, wait, 8 o'clock your time on Zoom, and 7 days a week. I host on Thursdays and Saturdays. Thursdays is a speaker meeting. Saturday nights is I pick a topic and we share on that topic. Like I just took over Saturday nights a couple weeks ago, and the first topic meeting I did was on obsession, and
mhm,
then this most recent Saturday, the topic was progress, not perfection. So
yeah,
like I pick a word or a cliche or something like that from from us,
mhm,
and or you can share on whatever your week was, day was. You don't have to share on
yeah,
the topic. But yeah, it's 8 o'clock your time, and I do the 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock here, which is great because it's like a great way to end my day. Where
yeah,
like end my day on a meeting, go lay in bed afterwards, and just like kind of simmer down and fall asleep easier. Let shit off my chest that happened that day or whatever. But I'm not here to
absolutely.
promote that. I'm just saying, if you ever need me, I'll send you over
Yeah,
the link over to that. It's a fun one. It's a great group of people that I trust that I'm friends with. The problem is they're mostly in California. Like I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's
yeah,
tough, to like make those connections. I know what you're saying when they're like halfway across or all the way across the country. Well, I guess in Omaha, everything's halfway across the country to you, whether it's
yeah,
east or west.
pretty much.
You're like dead center in the country in Omaha. Damn.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's amazing that like you're a year in and you got some sponsees under your belt. You're working
yeah,
in the field that's kind of like around that realm of recovery,
yeah,
and it's around the realm of like the trauma you've been through.
yeah,
And I think it's just it's amazing what you've been through. As of today, just unbelievable that you're sitting here clean today and you're in therapy, like,
yeah,
which is so important. They talk about, with us, they talk about getting outside help, seeking outside help.
yeah,
And that's it right there. I have therapy tomorrow, and then Thursday I have couples counseling therapy. Literally, my kid just finished therapy. Even our 11-year-old is in therapy
yeah,
because it's never too early to get into therapy. My dad passed 2 years ago, and he was 9, and he's his step grandpa, but it's the first person he was been cognizant and alive for that's passed away that he knew. And he started asking us about death, and we could answer, and we did, but we're like, I think it's time for therapy,
Yeah.
for a third party to also weigh in on how you're feeling right now, bud. And yeah, he just got done a session 10 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago. I just saw the time 2 minutes ago. And it's been really good for him, especially at that age, going to school and the bullies and
Yeah.
all the stuff that you deal with in school at that age in 6th grade and middle school. 6th, 7th, and 8th was rough for me. I know that much. It was a rough time, So, yeah, I think it's good for him. And I wish I would have done there was such a stigma, I'm 39. So like we're in our 30s, both of us, and there was such a stigma back in the day for being in therapy as a teenager and an adolescent that, our parents didn't know to get us into it, at that age. So yeah, Hazel, it's been awesome to get to know you again and to like revisit all this. I know it's not easy to talk about the cults and the abuse and what you've been through and your daughter, but like you're sitting here clean with a year under your belt. And I feel like this time, did you have sponsees the other time around when you had some clean time?
I did when I was in Florida.
Yeah.
But then not really after, not really on Zoom or anything like that.
Yeah. Did you make any, have you reached out to that Florida home group since you've been clean in the last year?
Not really.
Okay. I'm just curious. You'll be like, hey, I'm still here kicking,
Yeah.
So, well, thank you again, Hazel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome to, see your progress and where you're at. And yeah, come back anytime. I do panels. I think you'd be great for a panel one of these times, where we go over shit and I ask questions and we go around the group. Usually there's myself and like 7 people, and everyone has like a different modality of recovery, because I don't want just everybody in NA or AA to answer all the questions. I want to hear from everyone differently. So yeah, thank you so much again, Hazel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
3 hours.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, see ya.